How about, hold on. We are making some.
That's fine. Prop something up behind it. Yeah, there we go.
Hold on.
You're good, pal. I love the name, Pablo the Magnificent.
I don't leave that up there. Do I need to change the name?
No, of course not. That's the great thing about the podcast, man. It's so laid back and you can kind of do what you want. And there we go. The great Paul Kennedy joining us. A big hi from Joe Boo from Major League. He's here joining us today. So hello,
I got
Joe
the
Boo.
Team USA represented here. Miracle on Ice.
It's a beautiful thing. Mike Ruzioni, the entire crew over there. And Paul, we'll talk some Lightning hockey here in a bit, but I wanted to ask you, we're hearing from the Orlando Dreamers and from a guy that lives out there. What do you think the realistic possibility of a major league team there out in Orlando?
I think there's significant interest. And by that, I mean capital interest, people with money. I find it very interesting. And let me preface that by saying I was friends for nearly 40 years with Pat Williams, and I never discounted his vision or dreaming because he brought the NBA here and ushered in major league sport across Central Florida. Other than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, from the old Sombrero all the way through Central Florida, up through Jacksonville, and all the way down to Miami, there was no professional major league sport when the Magic arrived in 1989. You think about that. Right. The Jags didn't exist. Certainly, baseball did not exist in Tampa. But he made it happen here, and he had to convince the league that it would work, and it thrived. And then Phil Esposito came along and barnstormed with the hockey teams before he had hockey here and convinced the league it would thrive, and it exploded. So his dream still has a flicker of hope, and I think the race is here on 2 points. Number one, to find brick and mortar real estate that would hold a stadium. That's the big issue in Tampa. And the second is, do major league owners, you tell me, would they accept a transfer into a new marketplace? It certainly wouldn't affect or compete with the Rays with the Marlins, because their games are televised all throughout the state. But in terms of sharing with the other clubs newfound money, a newfound expansion fee, that's who they'd be up against. Is someone willing to pay $600 million to $1 billion to become the newest team in baseball? Here, if you move the Rays, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I don't want that to happen, or someone might not. But if that happens, then the owners don't share in new revenues from an expansion fee. I think that they would be hesitant. You and I could go get a group that would and back us for, and our expansion fee is what, $1 billion to get a baseball team?
Yeah.
And the owners their ears would perk up to that. You do have Disney here. You do have that baseball park at Disney, which could, within reason, be readily retrofitted in short term. I don't know about long term, and you have ample parking. Would it work? I don't know. Let me also say this, Coach Jay. Barry Larkin doesn't jump off the bridge right away without thinking about it, and he's gotten in with both feet. The great Barry Larkin, the Hall of Fame shortstop. What a phenomenal player he was in his career. What does he have to gain by getting involved in this? But he is. Wonderful gentleman was when he was playing. Is now an Orlando resident. He could embrace a number of, he being the celebrity frontman, if that's the term. I don't want to discount his intellectual capacities, but he has great credibility, don't you think, if he says something? Like having, yeah. The other thing I need to say, because I was very, very fortunate, blessed, at the outset of the Marlins with Wayne Huizinga and Sunshine Network and Dave Olmstead, the founder of cable television in this state, and Jay Randolph and Gary Carter, the late great Hall of Fame catcher. I was the third man on that telecast crew for 5 years. And we did games outside at what was then Joe Robbie and then Pro Players Stadium, the home of the Dolphins, outside in June, July, August, and my dry cleaning bill was pretty good. I was a gold. My dry cleaning guy sent me a Christmas card. Let me put it that way, because what the great blessing of the Trop is this, and I always said, do you realize what you have here? It has a roof. It's air conditioned. It's 72 degrees, and the games start on time.
Right.
Miami, they built after the after Pro Player or whatever it was, Jimmy Buffett's land shark, they built a stadium with a roof. And in Florida, I would come into the booth drenched going down to the cage before a game. But here, I always thought it was a blessing to have that stadium. And obviously, I was in the minority, but I said, be careful, you'll miss it. You don't know what you've got till it's gone. And so it'll be interesting to see. I was having flashbacks of June and July and August as we move to Steinbrenner Field. What it's going to be like in summer. We're going to televise the games on our network. So I want to be successful. And we're going to get the games in. The games that are supposed to start at 7 o'clock, they may not start till 8 o'clock. The tarp may be out. But I'm going to tell you, we're going to get those games in. So they may be a little late. But you want it comfortable for your significant other, your wife, your children. You want it to be a good experience for them. That was a long-winded answer.
No, it's great. It's great, brother. I love hearing from
like this. Wrap it up. Wrap it up.
I'm going to cut that snippet and send it to our guys, Rich Hollenberg and Dougie Wechter, because,
Two phenomenal baseball guys. Two phenomenal baseball guys. When Doug Wechter, Major League Baseball pitcher, I was interviewing him. My questions were like Chris Farley on Saturday Night Live with Paul McCartney. I said, like, you played for the Yankees? Wow. Cool. That was you got to wear the pinstripes? If you only played one day, you're in the show. You were in the show like Moonlight. What was that in?
Moonlight Graham.
Oh, my God.
Moonlight Graham.
Field of Dreams. So, yeah. And those were my boyhood heroes. And Rich and he together, we honestly, when Doug did his audition tape with us, everybody has to do an audition tape. You've been down this road a gazillion times. So you just do like a little 20, 30-minute fake show. So management, executives who know what they're talking about, can see if this person has the promise, the capacity of being able to do it. So you set up videos in the studio, you see how he looks, how comfortable he is. And so they asked me to come in early. We were doing down in South Florida. We could have been doing basketball or hockey that day. So I came in early and I had the honor and pleasure of doing Doug's audition, so to speak. And he's about 40 seconds into it. And I'm going, wow, okay, well, let's move on here. Because he was, he had cranked it in the upper deck. He was great, a natural. And he wants to do it. He's got a great soul, a great family. And look at Rich. He always comes prepared. Tremendous talent, does many other sports. And you've got BA and you've got stats. We're living in a golden era of professional sport in Florida. And it's all started within the last 30 years.
Yeah, you got that right, partner. I want to talk.
There's my producer again.
That's fine, man. You're fine. This is a good thing. We got no time ramifications here.
Nobody's
coming on after us.
Time out for Mike Ruzioni. Hold on. I'll give you a little tip. Nobody knows this. Mike Ruzioni will make an appearance on video. I'm not going to tell you where or when. On Super Bowl Sunday.
Really?
That's all I'm saying. That's it. That's the end of it. No more clues, Your Honor. But remember when he called everybody up when they won the game, and he called everybody up to the podium. I mean, they won the gold medal because they beat the Russians. And then who do they have to play? The Finns?
Finland, yep.
And what was Herb Brooks? They were trailing going into the third. And he said, you lose this game. And you will hate this. You'll remember this day or hate yourself forever.
Yeah.
For this game. And they came back and won the game. But I tease him. You made a career out of one goal. But you meet those guys today,
Yeah.
Jim Craig, and it's
Mhm.
like, you're Jim Craig? Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kenny
that was
Morrow. Yeah. Some incredible players
Kenny
on that team.
Morrow. Denny Potvin. I worked with the Panthers a little bit when we had the rights to him. And Kenny Morrow, Denny Potvin became like my godfather doing this. And the great Denny Potvin, captain of 4 Stanley Cup teams, took me under his wing. And this is a 93, 4, 5, 6, 7, right in there. And he took me around the league and everything. We did games together. But Kenny Morrow came right off of the gold medal game and went to the island and was paired with Denny Potvin. And Denny said it was seamless. He was one of those guys. Like, this is overstating it, but to say Connor Geeky of the Lightning doesn't look out of place.
Right.
And Kenny Morrow did not look out of place as a defenseman. And he got a gold medal and a Stanley Cup ring in the same summer. Right?
It's insane. I mean, I don't know if we're ever going to see anything quite like what Kenny Morrow's career was like, because it's different now, right? Because if the guys are playing in the Olympics, right, they're all pro. Like if the pros are going, it's not the same when Sidney Crosby scores the golden goal and wins the gold medal, and obviously he's a Stanley Cup champion.
Yeah, it's
Kenny
different.
Morrow was part of a bunch of amateurs that won against quote unquote professionals. And then he went to the Islanders and was part of those cup winning teams. Like, I don't know if we'll ever see anything like that again.
Yeah, it would be like Minnesota Duluth or the University of Michigan or Michigan State, I should say, for Adam Hall.
And Isaac Howard, Lightning draft pick.
And get this, Kenny Morrow.
Yeah, there we go.
Isaac Howard, and maybe you said this on your podcast, and I missed it. Isaac Howard, let me look around and see if Julian Breesbus. Isaac Howard could be here before the season's over. Right, what's to stop that? I mean, he's leading the NCAA in scoring. He can play. This is his eligibility year to come out, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Michigan State captain. Adam Hall stepped right off the campus. Same scenario. Stepped right off the campus. He was the captain of Michigan State, 3 years. Stepped off the campus. Was drafted by the Predators. Goes to Nashville. They send him to Milwaukee. He plays 6 games in the AHL. They say, okay. He can play without a cage. He can play with a glass shield.
Right.
Okay. And so over the final weekend, we got a couple of games. We'll just have him hang out with us. So they play a game, and then they go out to Phoenix to play, and somebody gets hurt. And here he is. He's got his cup of coffee and his tie on after the morning skate. Barry Trotz comes in and says, Adam, you're in tonight. Squeeze me, baking powder. And that was it. He was in, and he played the same year he was the captain of Michigan State. He played in the National Hockey League. And as Marty St. Louis used to like to say, you're in the book. You play 1 game or 1,000 games, you're in the book. You have played in the NHL.
It's a beautiful thing. I would love to see it. Isaac Howard's 20 years old, so is Connor Geeky. So those are 2 guys. I think you put them in the middle of the lineup for this Tampa Bay Lightning team, and they could be a factor. Why not? This team needs a little bit of a jolt, I think, in the middle 6. Paul, it was so great to see the Bolts get back to kind of their winning ways last night. LA Kings 3-0 victory with a couple of goals for Hagel, 1 for Cirelli. I mean, what can you say about that tag team? Hagel and Cirelli, whether it's on the penalty kill or 5-on-5, like those guys really have grown, and they've warranted that selection of Team Canada.
I think so. I know so. And I've said this weekend, we honor a Hall of Fame class in Brian Bradley, the first All-Star, on that first team in 92, 93, scored the first goal in Amalie. I've seen, and Rick Peckham, the other honoree, has seen just about every game the Lightning have played, right, over 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I can defend myself here, that this is one of the great tandems of their own merit. Mm-hmm. I'm not comparing them to anybody, in their own silo. We've never seen anything quite like this. in that, are they St. Louis and LeCavalier? No, they're different. Are
Mhm.
they Brad Richards and LeCavalier? No, they're different. But we haven't seen the combination of goal scoring capacity. The next goal for Cirelli is his 20th. That will be, is that 6 20 goal scorers or something?
Mhm.
But at all facets, even strength, shorthanded, who goes over the boards for a penalty kill? They are just as dangerous shorthanded. They can play power play, go down
Right.
into the bump, but they work so well together that John Cooper, an attorney, and Julian Breezebaugh, an attorney by education, could make a case for Team Canada's executives that they should play together.
Right.
They are inseparable. When playing together, they are a force of nature. We have the second most shorthanded goals in the National Hockey League. And that's remarkable. They got one last night. I was just, and Brandon Hagel had an assist. He should have had as Dave Andrechuk, note the Andrechuk Foundation hat here. See
There you
that?
go. Yeah, buddy.
With all the teams, that he played for. Can you make that out?
Yeah, pull it back a little bit. Oh, nice. Whoa, I never saw that. That's amazing. Oh
I
my
got a
god.
hat. I got a hat deal for you. Oh, see that one, the old logo.
Oh, that's great.
I got a hat deal for you. I had the same hat deal. He said, "Paul, I'll make you a deal. $20, you get a hat."
Oh
So,
yeah.
but as Dave Andrechuk, he should have had on his second goal when Kucherov had the partial breakaway
Mm-hmm.
and goes storming in, and Riddick trips him, and the rebound comes off of Riddick. And then Hagel, following the play, scores on the rebound. He should have had an assist to himself because in the defensive end,
Mm-hmm.
he headmans the puck to Kucherov.
Right.
Kucherov then comes flying up the ice, and Hagel follows the play at full speed. Rebound, Hagel, touchdown. So, in effect, two guys touched the puck before the goal scorer, him and
Right.
Cooch. He had an assist to himself.
I love
And
that.
yeah, I just find him, I don't know if it's his confidence growing, but he clearly belongs. He's clearly, if there was an all-star game this year, it'd be interesting to see who would represent the Tampa Bay Lightning. We have an incredible group of men in this golden age still of Lightning hockey.
Yeah, you got that right, buddy. Brandon Hagel is a guy, and I remember that first press conference. You were probably there when he first got traded from Chicago, and he looked like he was white as a ghost. He was just like, I didn't know I was getting traded. And you just forget about being a hockey player. You were
How many years ago
empathetic
was
to him
that?
as a human being. 3 years ago, I want to say. But I was empathetic to him as a human being, not a hockey player. We think these guys are unflappable. Hey, they're professional athletes. They'll figure it out. This is still a young man. This is still a guy figuring out who he is as a human being. Forget about it as a hockey player. He gets
There's so many
traded.
very
He gets traded from a team where he was finding some success. He was good. He's playing with Patrick Kane. Then he goes to Tampa. He's like, oh my gosh, because you get drafted by a team, you get developed by a team, you grow with a team. Sometimes I don't think these guys realize the business end of it. And they realize that you kind of have to be ready for the unthinkable because it is a business. And it's easy for guys like we saw last year, Anthony Duclair has played on seeming like 15 teams. He understands it's a business. But for these young guys, that first kind of transition, that first change is a lot easier said than done to be able to deal with. But he's incredible. Him and Anthony Cirelli. I love that combination of those two guys. And you bring up a great point. If there was an all-star game this year, who would be the guy or guys representing the Tampa Bay Lightning? I wanted to ask you this on the podcast because you asked me this question yesterday as we were walking into Amalie Arena together. Who is the greatest player in Tampa Bay Lightning history? And I know a lot of people out there will say Steven Stamkos. You'll have Nikita Kucherov as an option. Some people will say, Andrei Vasilevsky, you'll go back to the 04 teams and maybe you'll say a guy like Martin St. Louis or Vinny Lecavalier. But you brought up to me yesterday Victor Hedman as that guy who's been a top 5 defenseman for the better part of a decade, a Norris Trophy winner, the captain now of Team Sweden. I mean, number 77 certainly is in the conversation.
Conn Smythe Award winner, too. Perennial All-Star consideration. And this is no slight to 91 and Steven Stamkos. I thought he saved the franchise to a degree. He was our hope when the years got lean, and he came into the league, as you said, at 18, but I never thought he was wide-eyed at the age of 18. He had a presence about him, and he was mentored by Martin St. Louis, mentored by Vinny Lecavalier. You're right. The inclination is to say Stammer, because look at all the records he set, how many ceremonies we had on ice for him, how he carried himself. Everything about him was perfection. And the injuries that he dealt with, no man in the history of this franchise has dealt with as severe injuries as he has. And remember the puck to the face in 2011, Game 7 at Boston, Eastern Conference Final, and we lose that game. He may have missed a half dozen shifts, came back out, patched up with a metal cage on him, and it was a 1-goal game, and Boston won the Eastern Conference, went to the Stanley Cup Final, and won over Vancouver. I always thought that was Steven and the Lightning's Stanley Cup. It should have been with Guy Boucher, should have been. And but that started this run, and Guy was within a year or so succeeded by John Cooper. But I've always thought that he was. But as we get deeper into this, what gave me cause for pause was him being named captain of the Three Crowns for the Four Nations face-off. And someone pointed out it's the 10th time from his junior days till now that on an international level, he has been a captain for his nation. And I went, or the team he played on. Let me prove it. So, and you go, wait a second, does he have the most games played in Lightning history, or does that still belong to Steven?
I think it's still Stammer.
Okay. Most assists. Right behind him is 86.
I think Cooch just caught him.
Right. Cooch had
yeah.
But you see what I'm saying?
I know what you mean, yeah.
He's playing on the back end, and it's been a phenomenal run. And perhaps, I don't want to say overshadowed, but in a secondary consideration every time you talked about the greats. But I can only imagine what it's like inside the locker room when he stands up. Everybody shuts up that wears a Tampa Bay Lightning sweater. I just think and I've never met, this will sound very prejudicial. In my 30 years, I've never met a Swede, a gentleman, someone from Sweden that wasn't a gentleman. Name all the Swedes. Just start through. Mikael Anderson, first year, still with the franchise as an international scout. More recently, Matthias Olin.
Anton Strawman.
Anton Strawman. What a nice man.
Beautiful man.
And could play the big smooth. Remember, was never rushed on his passes, never rushed as a defenseman. Victor, all the goaltenders that we have had that have come through. I've always found them to be gentlemen. And is that the culture of the nation? But yeah, it's and who comes over, I like it a lot. There'll be a tough out, Sweden will, but then again, so will the States. So will Finland, I bet. So will Team Canada. They'll all be tough out in this Four Nations face-off. I just saw Drew Doughty, Dave Randorf, and Brian England were discussing in the course of the telecast with LA last night, with Alex Pietrangelo electing not to play for Canada. Here's Drew Doughty back, skating, 16 years, second pick after Stamkos in that draft of 2008, in which the next 4 picks after Stammer were defensemen, including Luke Shen and what have you, the great defensive draft He might be a candidate to join. I'm not going to say he is, but he might be a candidate to join. So you'd get a 17-year defenseman who's had two Olympic gold medals and 2 Stanley Cups out in Los Angeles, and played every minute of every game in that sweater. That's what Victor has done now in his 16th year. Every achievement, every assist, every moment in his plus minus. It hasn't been with 2 or 3 teams. Everything has been wearing a Lightning sweater, and that means a lot to a homeboy like me.
Yeah, you're right. And you think about it with Victor Hedman, he's in that conversation, right? As one of the best players in Tampa Bay Lightning franchise history, but he's not in the conversation when it comes to best defenseman in Lightning history. He is the conversation, Paul Kennedy. There's no debate. He's one, and there's a large gap between him and number 2.
I've seen Pavel Kabina with the map before. I've seen, in 2004.
Right.
Pavel Kabina had it all going on. I remember that specifically. I'm trying to see who else tops out. Rob Ramage was here only for that first year. Roman Hamrlik, who ended up having a 20-year career. Roman Hamrlik, where he's living now? Costa Rica.
Oh, nice. He's going to be here this weekend, no?
Yeah, I think so.
I think he's going to be here this weekend. Let's not forget about some of the other defensemen. Obviously Ryan McDonough, incredible career with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Dan Boyle. Dan Boyle, also another guy. I'm actually writing a story on Ryan McDonough, Paul, for the Tampa Bay Lightning website as the guest writer for the month of February. So I've actually compiled.
Really?
Yes. So Eric Erlinson did one on the candidacy of John Cooper for the Jack Adams Award for January up on TampaBayLightning.com. For February, I'm doing a story on how the Lightning made it right by bringing back Ryan McDonough. And I reached out to our good pal Brian Engblom and Phil Esposito, and I talked to Pat Maroon after the game the other night. I've talked to Tommy Mulligan, the head athletic trainer, as well as Victor Hedman and Eric Chernak. So yeah, I'm excited.
Is there one common in 15 seconds? Was there one common denominator in all of their responses? I thought nobody bats 1,000 in any endeavor, and I thought the organization believed on 2 points. One, financially, we need to create some room. But 2, perhaps we could get by comparatively speaking. And we realized 5-on-5 or shorthanded, we could not.
Yeah.
That we took a hit, and we need to go rectify this. And for future considerations, call Barry Trotz and say, Barry, we need to talk. I need here, and we're going to be pals a long time. We're going to have a working relationship. I need him back. What do you think? Do you think some of that played into it? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think it did. And as much as you can look at, I think you can look at the defensive numbers, right? What their numbers are 5-on-5, what the penalty kill numbers are. But I think the true value of Ryan McDonough is it's immeasurable. I think it's an intangible, Paul, because what you got from these guys were a consistent message across the board about stability, about him being a machine, about him being a warrior. And I really wanted to ask each person about Ryan McDonough, the man. And I think that has a lot to do, like his upbringing. His dad's a firefighter, right? You look at, he's a father. He's got 3 kids, his wife, and just everybody said he's a great dad. He's a great husband. He's just an incredible human being. And I think it was Pat Maroon that looked at me and he goes, Jay, Ryan McDonough is like who we all strive to be. Like, he's like the perfect dude. Like, he says he doesn't have to say a ton, but he when he does speak, everybody listens, and he's just a great human being. And I'm a firm believer that, the best, if you're a great human being, you could do anything. Obviously, you need athletic ability, you need talent, but if you're a guy that has the work ethic and you're just a down-to-earth, salt-of-the-earth type of guy like Ryan McDonough, you're not just going to improve your own life, but everybody around you. And I think that's another reason why, even though defensively, yeah, they're better, but the team walks a little bit taller and their heads are on a little bit straighter when they have a guy like Ryan McDonough in that locker room.
Gabby Shirley, my colleague, I don't think I'm that old, but she calls me Mr. Kennedy. She was interviewed. She does a spectacular job, and
Yes, she does.
she was interviewing him. I believe it was the last game.
Mhm.
We were talking about absence. I don't know if it was after Chicago losing 5-1, but it could have been at his locker. You know, players that will interview stand up at their locker after a win.
Right.
Oh, that's nice. A veteran player that will stand up at his locker and be an example to younger players and answer the tough questions with politeness. Ryan McDonough, he said, what we need to do here is stay together. We're not going to break apart and go in different directions. Now, he didn't use the word panic, but he said press in different directions and create something that's inefficient. I'm paraphrasing this. We will all stay together and we will get out of this. The absence of goal scoring, 1 goal in 2 games. And he was right, you know, and he said we nearly had a 3-on-2 kill. I mean, a 5-on-3 kill.
Yeah.
Remember that? And then right
Yeah.
at the end of it,
Connor Bedard. Yeah. 3 seconds left. That was a killer. Oh,
Connor Bedard. You said Connor Bedard.
what a
Last
player.
year, 2-2. Okay, well, you knew he was coming. Okay, we'll show you. Okay, it's 2-2. And the assists were to Tyler Johnson and Corey Perry.
Right.
His 2 assists. Okay, Julian. and then last 2 nights ago or this week or whenever we played, because all the games are starting to run together in January, he gets another goal. It's just, do you know that we played, and I said this to Dorf and Brian as I pitched it to him the other night. Well, we faced LA for the second time. It seems like just a couple of weeks ago, but since we last faced them out in Los Angeles, we have played 14 more games.
Jeez.
We played him at the outset of January. We were playing him at the end of January. And in between, we had squeezed. This would be the 16th game in 28 nights.
Oh, my gosh.
This is like, and I turned to Dave Andrechuk, 23 years in the National Hockey League. He and I combined for 640 goals. I want you to know that. Across our combined 23 seasons. I turned to him and I said, I don't remember anything like this. And he said, I don't know that I do either, but from a different perspective.
Right.
Just a lot. And I think it's, what would you say it is for the Four Nations face-off, that you've had an accordion, you've had to compress games into January and then into March on the backside. Or I don't remember December being quite like this, but you had Christmas.
Yeah, you have that couple days break around the holidays. So
16 games, but you couldn't practice.
I know. You couldn't rectify, and you also couldn't sleep. It was like 2 days, I think, up until this past week, where they had a full, complete day in Tampa, where they woke up in Tampa and fell asleep in Tampa, and they didn't have anything else going on. Right. It's wild. Paul, before I let you go, I want to ask you real quick.
Braden Coburn brought this up. He said, all the players, we did post game on, what was the last game of the trip? Detroit? Detroit, was it Detroit? I think it was Detroit, right?
Yes, Chicago, then Detroit.
Chicago, then Detroit. Or we had a practice day after Chicago. Well, one of them, and Braden Coburn, wonderful defenseman, 55 blue, on the Stanley Cup, played 16 years in the league. He knows what he's talking about and has a passion for this. He said, they're all talking about practice.
Yep.
You know, Braden Point and McDonough and Hedman, they're talking about how tomorrow we get a day of practice rather than rest. He says, I feel like it's Allen Iverson. This is exactly, I feel like it's Allen Iverson. We're not talking about a game. We're talking about practice. And that's what he said, made me laugh.
It's a beautiful thing. Paul, I got about 5 minutes left with you. Before I let you go, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the Hall of Famers this weekend, Brian Bradley and Bobby the Chief Taylor, 2 guys that you know really well.
Yeah, Brian Bradley, our first All-Star. Google Brian Bradley in 1992. He had in 92-93 had a 42-goal season. 42-goal season playing in that prefabricated building, Expo Hall. He was our first All-Star. And he goes to Montreal, the historic forum, representing us. and he skates on an all-star line with his centerman was Wayne Gretzky, and on the other wing was Brett Hall. And there are great pictures of those three together. The proudest moment. He was here 7 years, and then on the first night of what is now Amalie Arena, Terry Crisp, in his wisdom, the great coach, we had gone from the prefabricated hut to the Thunderdome, which is Tropicana Field, to now having the building we now call Amalie. We had the New York Rangers in town. He started five guys that were, or four skaters, pardon me, five skaters that were still here that had played in Expo Hall.
Wow.
And Brian Bradley, fittingly, the heavens, scored the very first goal in what is now Amalie Arena. And he never left. He's been an ambassador for this team for 30 years. And then Rick Peckham, for 22 years of his 40-year Foster Hewitt Award-winning career, was the voice of the Lightning. He has chronicled through his excellence. He started with Hartford, Jerry Cheevers, who's in the Hall of Fame, Rick, who earns the Foster Hewitt, enshrined in the Hall of Fame 2 years ago. He has chronicled the careers of, just consider this, he has called almost every game played by Vinny LeCavalier, Marty St. Louis, Dave Andrechuk as a member of the Bolts, Brad Richard certainly as a member of the Bolts. Think about this. Victor Hedman, he called nearly every game of Steven Stamkos. The list goes on and on and on. And he's done it with, we were running the highlights last night. Extraordinary talent. I mean, otherworldly talent. And he's a gentleman. And he will fittingly receive his jacket and join Marty and Vinny and Dave and Phil and Brad on the wall of the Tom McEwen press box as members of the Lightning Hall of Fame. One of the great honors of my career is to have served on the selection committee and then to nominate figures and then see the fans vote him, the players vote him, the media vote Rick, and the media vote Brian. Brian represents an entire generation of players that many never saw play. John Tucker, Darren Pupa. I know I'm taking up all your time. The producers.
No, you're fine.
You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, he represents an entire generation. So it's going to be spectacular. 4:30, they walk the blue carpet or such, and then we have the Blue Jacket ceremony, and then with the Islanders in town, they will come out and drop the ceremonial puck. And Brian will be at the face-off circle once again.
That's a beautiful thing. And then their names will get revealed right outside the press box there. And I cannot wait to be in attendance for that. The one and only you want to talk about, gentleman. He's a gentleman. He's a scholar. One of the best guys I know, the great Paul Kennedy. Paul, man, I appreciate your time so much.
Pablo the
Magnificent. That needs to be your lower third, the next broadcast over on the FanDuel Sports Network, my friend. And
it's
shout out to Mike.
That I'm here. It's a miracle I'm here.
I love you. I love you too, pal. Thank you so much for your time. I'll see you tomorrow night.
Yeah, buddy. Thumbs up.
All right, pal. Good stuff as always.